Please support this channel by subscribing and leaving comments.
Welcome to part 2 of the Shorty Wallace J. Rowland interview conducted by John Green back in February 1967. Let's begin.
Either of you ever meet anybody that had seen the thing itself?
No, I haven't.
Well, I was working up there when two of those guys said they saw it. Now, I don't know what they saw. Really, I accused this one guy of telling me a little story, and it really made him mad. Of course, I didn't say those words, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What
was his name?
Ray Kerr was
What
the
did
guy.
he say he'd seen?
Well, he said he'd seen Bigfoot. When he came up there to work, that was in 58 there, late that fall. And, of course, he'd worked for us here before. We knew him for quite a long time. And, he really laughed. He said Wallace was going up there, and Megan said, I'm going up there and help him. So he was really pouring it on us, you know, up there. And so he was running a cap and pulling a can there, hauling dirt. So one night, we had to go up there and do some welding on it, I did. So he went with me, and Red Tillinger went with me. And we worked on it there till about 11 o'clock, I guess it was, that night. And the next morning, we went to work. These tracks was all around there. And up and down the road and around that can sat about 2 trips. And that really changed his outlook on things, because when we went home from work, we went in and eat, and then we went right back up there.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked on it, and he knew that none of us had been out.
This was at the camp at
Loud Camp there on Love Creek, right at the Notice Creek Bridge. And he told me that then one time he came in on Sunday night late, him and another guy by the name of Les Brazil or something like that. And they said he went across the road in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
They said it was quite a ways out in front of them, but they said when they got to where it was, they stopped and they saw the tracks. There were 2 tracks on the road where he get on one edge and then over one more track, and the third track was landed off of the road.
What did he describe it as looking like?
Well, he said it was looked like it was a pretty hairy rig with real long arms. As near as he could tell, but of course it was dark, and it's kind of hard to tell when it's out, you know, quite a ways away from you in the light.
But he said it was hairy.
Yeah, he said it was.
The 2 men mentioned here are Ray Kerr and Leslie Brazil. And these 2 were returning from town to the Bluff Creek Road construction camp when they saw what they referred to as an ape-like creature supposedly bounded across the road in front of the car. Even Roger Patterson mentions this in his 1966 book, and here's some artwork that he did for that alleged sighting. Whatever it was, it disappeared in the brush, and they found some tracks too, like those seen elsewhere on the construction job. And Betty Allen, she kept one of these articles in her Bigfoot scrapbook, but that's what they're referring to, these 2 gentlemen who were locals. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Kerr was part of the Pacific Northwest expedition. I have to go back and see, but I think that he might have been part of that. And I believe that Dustin Sievers covers a bit of that in his book that I showed you at the beginning of this video. So again, check out that book because there's a lot of information. I'm sorry, maybe I'll put some information here because I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But maybe I'll put a little bit of information while I'm talking here pertaining to that, because I seem to remember that Ray Kerr was involved somehow with Slick, Tom Slick in the Pacific Northwest expedition.
Had you ever heard any suggestion of it being hairy thing before that?
Well, of course, I've heard a lot of things, descriptions of it, but I don't know.
Well, when he described it that way, was this a surprise to you at the time? Or?
Well, it wasn't at that time nothing that surprised me, or later now either, as far as that goes. After you see as many tracks as we've seen, it could look most like anything, you know. Of course, I guess everybody probably has a picture in their mind of what they think it would look like.
Well, you said you didn't believe it.
Well, no, I told him, I said, oh, I think you're full of BS, and he really got mad. By golly, so I don't know what he sees. Maybe he did see it.
And he's the only one you talked to?
That's the only one that I actually talked to, were those two guys, that Les Brazil and Ray Kerr, that said they'd seen it. Now, what he's seen, I don't know. But he was...
How long should I study again?
Well, we've got this cat here. This, of course, is the size of the thing. I think it is a 16-inch by 8-inch model by looking at it.
Yeah, I think that is. I don't know. I've got a paper in my pocket. I don't know if I measured that one or not.
17.
Well, that's about 17 there, long.
17 by 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5. Where's that other? You want to measure that other one?
I bet you that's 15.
Yeah, that's 15. It's
15 by 7.5.
yeah, well,
This is different.
it's different. It's
have you seen more than those two?
oh yeah. Doggone, I had another one of a 12-inch cast one time, about around 12, or maybe a shade over. I don't know what happened to that. You know, I used to have a lot of casts laying around here. Some of them wasn't too good, and people come along, I'd give them to them, and I finally give them all away.
Shorty gave away all of his track casts, which is a real shame. Maybe someone has them out there. Maybe they'll turn up. That would be fantastic. They measured one of the casts, and it was 17 by 7.5, I think. Another one was 15. And then Shorty also mentions a 12-inch. It would be interesting to get access to the Wallace family stompers, those wood stompers that they claim were used to make footprints back in Bluff Creek and other places, and measure those. If there's a 17-inch, a 15-inch, and a 12-inch, then possibly they were used to make footprints in those areas. If there's not, then who made those footprints, and why wouldn't there be a 17, 15, and a 12-inch in the Wallace collection? Food for thought.
You ever measure how far the strides were on these things?
Oh yeah, I've measured them a lot of times, and they usually will run around 50 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say, Jay? Didn't most of them run around 50, 48?
We measured that time up there. I don't remember now just how high it was. It's somewhere right around 50 or 54 inches apart.
You know, on average. Sometimes it's maybe a few would be a little bit closer and maybe a few a little farther, but on average it was right around there.
I know that you said that people have accused you of making them, and I've heard way back that people accuse your brother of making them. Did you ever seriously consider whether it'd be possible to make them? Have you ever tried it?
Well, I've tried it.
How did you make out?
Well, I'm no good. I never could figure out anything to that I could make of it.
So you wouldn't.
I figured I could make some money on it if I could put the tracks where I wanted them.
Well, you don't figure anyone else can make them.
Well, I don't know how they would. A lot of people say, oh, they've got them on stilts, but I used to walk stilts when I was a kid, but I've seen places there now the tracks have been, and you couldn't need any more than carry stilts on your arms.
Look at it this way. How in the world can you take a pair of stilts on your feet, walk on them like they say they can do? How in the world can you step over a log or something about 36 inches in diameter? You can't do it.
Well, and then as far as these tracks have been seen, if somebody could do it, I don't know just what their motive would be.
Mm-hmm. Shorty mentions unsuccessfully trying to make footprints. No luck. Couldn't do it. Around this time, there was a TV show, and it was titled or called Truth or Consequences. They offered a $1,000 reward. Bear in mind how much $1,000 was back in 1958. They offered a reward for anyone who could show how those footprints were made. You'd think that people would be lining up to collect that $1,000 if they made these footprints. No takers. Not a single one. People had ideas on how they were made, but no one was able to show how they were made. John Green, even years later, because of all the flack he received in relation to his belief that the footprints were legit, he put up a reward, substantial reward, and I want to say it was at least $50,000, if not $100,000. Again, if someone could show him convincingly how the footprints were made in Bluff Creek in 1958. Not a single taker. Some people have argued that someone did it through pulley system, cable system, and if that's the case, let's replicate that. Please, someone show us how that's done. I'm very curious because it doesn't seem like it could be done very easily. Maybe I'm wrong. Others said that they heard stories of someone being pulled behind a truck like they're on a rope, and they're literally running behind the truck as the truck pulls them along, and that gives them the huge stride. It doesn't explain the depth of the footprints unless someone's carrying a lot of weight, but then that gets a little dangerous when you're being pulled behind a truck. And it doesn't explain how footprints were found down embankments. These footprints weren't just on the road. This is probably something not a lot of people know about. Footprints were found in pretty difficult areas to get to. Down in creek beds, like literally down in canyons, on embankments that were pretty steep. If someone's on a pulley system doing that, that's maybe quite dangerous and hard to do, risky, especially in 1958 without the technology we have nowadays to do things like that. But again, we don't know if the footprints were hoaxed, if they're legit. However, it's interesting to note that no one at the time collected that reward, that $1,000 reward that Truth or Consequences put up. Not a single person.
Have you seen these in the bottom of in the creek bed when there was no road down there?
Oh, yeah, lots of times.
Places where
in fact, they used to see more of them along the creek, along Bluff Creek, than anywhere else before the road was up in that country, but it wasn't down in the creek.
So that
It was the road was probably from 100 to 200 or 300 feet above the creek along it, right in there, and it was a real nice sandy bar, and that's where it had to go across these when it was going along the creek, if he was fishing or whatever he was doing.
So if a man was facing those tracks, he couldn't have taken any equipment down there. There'd be no way down.
Oh no, there was log jams in that creek, and there's no way to get anything in there other than on foot. And it was steep going down to the creek from the road.
So one time before, on this year, we were traveling out of this place up there, right along where Shorty was talking about. And then Ray Reese and Frank Reese was in the pickup, and I was driving. And Frank was in the front, and Ray was in the back of the pickup. And we went by this place, and Ray pecked on the cab of the pickup, so I stopped. Well, Ray said, "I've seen something in the creek." So I had to go on down about another 50, 100 feet to find some place I could turn around, and we run right back up there real quick. And driving by there, the first trip, we was probably doing right around 30 miles an hour because there's a straightaway in there. And he said he just caught a glimpse of it down in there where Shorty was speaking over there. We turned around and headed back up there real quick. And when we got there, we couldn't find hiding here. Nobody. We drove by there about a couple miles an hour and policed that whole area for any kind of activity at all. We never went down in the creek to see if there's any tracks or nothing.
He did see something there, though.
Well, he said he's seen something down there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he's seen, or he don't know himself.
Mm-hmm.
He said he just caught a glimpse of something down there.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I want you to take away from what was stated here is that Ray doesn't know what he saw. He caught a glimpse of something. This is important to note because we see that a lot in today's climate with Sasquatch research, where people aren't seeing enough of whatever animal it is to make any claim as to what it was. Yet we hear people say, "I saw a Sasquatch." If you see what is clearly a Sasquatch, great. But if you don't see enough of something, please don't make that claim. Personally speaking, I saw something in around 2006, 2007 in the area of Sechelt, British Columbia, which is north of Vancouver, British Columbia. I don't know what it was. There was someone else with me. We both concluded we don't know what it was. It may have been a Sasquatch, didn't see enough of it, saw some hair, looked quite tall, moved very quickly. Some of the post-sighting behavior was indicative of Sasquatch behavior, or what we understand to be Sasquatch behavior, but didn't see enough to make any conclusions. And I hope that everyone else will abide by that mantra. Don't conclude you saw Sasquatch if you didn't see enough to make that conclusion. And Ray could not make a conclusion.
Now, all this country that he's speaking of had been slid in there during the flood, and
That old sandbar's not there anymore, is it?
no, it's all completely gone, plus a lot of new sand on top of it. Now, there in 65, along in August of 65, somewhere right along in there, I came back down from Wildcat. The first tracks I seen in 65 was way back up on the Wildcat Road, on the Wildcat Cell. Well, now, the time I seen them there, I just seen one track, and he went over the bank. And I came back down to the Bluff Creek, along in August or a little bit later there somewhere, and I punched the road down into the Bluff Creek, leading off the corner of a high lead block. And whenever I got down into the creek there, I was working 11 hours a day and staying up there. I was working 5 days a week. That way I can have 2 days a week at home. Well, whenever we got down into the creek there, I was working 9 hours pushing can, and I'd spend the other 2 hours working on the roads up the creek. Well, I run onto a timber trawler, had run across a camera in the creek. It'd been rigged in there. Now, how come him to run across this camera? The flood and everything brought in so much sand, it widened the creek out. In this one place that we're speaking of, is approximately around 50 feet wide, the sandbar itself. Well, before, that creek in there was 10, maybe 12 feet wide. And he found this camera, and he seen a box of tin and stuff out there under a little bit of dead brush. Well, he started to go ahead, and the tree that he was going to fall would go right across it. So, he said, what the world would a piece of tin be doing out here after the big flood? So he goes out and checks it, and finds it's a camera rigged out there. So he gives it to Dan Maston, the Bull Buck, and it belongs to an outfit out of Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah, that's Lee Trippett's camera. We were looking at that a couple of days ago.
Wasn't nothing on it?
Hmm?
Wasn't nothing on your dog?
Oh, yeah, he had some pictures of loggers looking mighty puzzled. Yeah, that's a real rig. That really works. That was it. Triggered by an infrared beam.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
And it had a battery rig. He figured it was good for a month. Had a 16-millimeter movie camera in there, and every time the beam was broken, it tripped one frame. And it worked fine. He said he got good pictures of the loggers, but that was all he got.
But now that show you I was in that creek right there.
Yeah, you got the spot all right.
John Green mentions the name Lee Trippett. Trippett was an active investigator, researcher back in those days, and he had rigged up a trip camera, whatever you want to call it, wire camera, tripwire camera. Now, he was way ahead of his time, I have to say, as far as Sasquatch research goes. He may have been one of the first, if not the first person to do that. I know that eventually Bob Titmus would do the same thing. And John Green mentions it having infrared capabilities, which is quite interesting because it's something that Sasquatch researchers use today, infrared and thermal. So I think it's very interesting that even back then they were, doing the same things that we're trying nowadays, only we use trail cams or thermal imagers. But back then they were trying to get a photo of a Sasquatch. And funny enough, as they laughed about, he did get some good photos of the loggers and the road builders. So that's kind of comical.
So one other thing, ever do any figuring, either one of you, on how much weight it would take to make these imprints?
Well, now that's a question that your ground would vary in compaction on it. If you went out here somewhere and you put an animal up on the road that weighs 1,000 pounds, if he didn't hit soft dirt, he wouldn't make much of the imprint.
Mm-hmm.
If he hit soft dirt, he'd make a lot of imprints. So, as far as I'm concerned, the way I see it, you can't determine what the thing weighs. A deal like that. It's got to be at least 800 pounds.
Well, it must be pretty good size for the tracks that I've seen in places. Of course, it has to be either more of dust or softer material versus for it to leave an imprint of the footprint. Like Jay said, it's spread out so far, and if it's on hard road material, why it just doesn't leave any footprint. Mm-hmm. Maybe you'll see toe print or the heel print or something like where it walks down the rock, a smaller rock like on the road. Mm-hmm. But you can usually make out, or sometimes you can't even tell that if it's real rocky, or the just smaller rock, I mean.
Well, would you take a guess at what it might weigh?
Well, it's, I don't know.
Well, could a man pack that weight?
Well, I don't believe so. I don't know how big it would have to be if it, for a man to pack that weight, and you take a man, unless he's awful tall and awful fat, most guys you see that are real fat, they can't, I don't think they could ever walk like that, take a stride like that. Of course, maybe 300 or 400 pounds would do it, but I don't know. It's just hard to tell.
Put it this way, how many men do you know can walk around and pack 300 or 400 pounds for 4 or 5 miles? Be sensible. Huh?
Well, it's, that there,
Yeah. Boy,
I don't think it's anything like that, I don't believe.
Well, thanks very much. We're just running out of tape here, so we'll cover the subject.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
That concludes the interview that John Green did of Shorty Wallace and Jay Rowland. It's a step back in time. Again, that interview occurred in February of 1967. That's months before Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin obtained the footage of what we commonly refer to as Patty at Bluff Creek. And yeah, it's interesting to hear what they have to say. Puts into perspective some of the things that were happening at the time. And I know that that Rowland was around a lot longer than Shorty was. He lived a lot longer. And he did a few little interviews, including something with Les Stroud. And you could find that online somewhere on YouTube, no doubt. And I know that Stephen Streufert had interviewed him as well, because he was pretty close to Ray, Jay. And again, Ray. I say Ray because I'm thinking Ray Wallace. Shorty Wallace was one of Ray Wallace's brothers, and so there's that connection. And he worked for his brother, and he was in the heart of things, as was Rowland, Jay Rowland, back in 1958. So again, it's interesting to hear their perspective, and it's a little time capsule of what happened back then. I hope you enjoyed that. Look for more interviews, and again, thanks for your support.
If you're enjoying all this rare and unique content, please show your support by subscribing and leaving comments.